What if you could train a private AI model on your entire life's work so your ideas and thoughts could achieve digital immortality? In this episode of Me and My AI, I'm interviewing a 90-year-old Mumbai based technologist, changemaker, and political advisor named Hemen Parekh, who is doing just that. Stick around to see how one man is archiving 70 years of personal and professional writing so that people around the world can explore his ideas and learn how you can do the same with your own personal AI. See you there.
That the author meant that he has many ideas for reforming the world, and if he doesn't write it down and put it up in the manner of a book or whatever, then he will be taking them to the grave with him.
Welcome back to Me and My AI. In this interview series, you'll meet leaders and business owners who have trained their own personal AI to support their thought leadership and impact within their communities and their industries. I'm your host, Marissa Brassfield, and today it's my pleasure to interview a very special personal AI customer. He's a blogger, a change maker, a poet, a political advisor, and someone using his AI to attain digital immortality. Stick around to learn from and be inspired by visionary elder Hemen Parekh. Hemen, welcome. It is such a pleasure to be with you today.
Oh, it's nice to be with you, Marissa. I love to be here this morning and talking to you.
Yes, and you're in Mumbai, right?
Yes, and it's 9 o'clock in the morning in Mumbai.
How wonderful. And I'm in Los Angeles, and it is magic that we get to be together today. Well, I mean, you are quite a remarkable man, and I would love if you could share for our audience just a little bit about yourself, your background, your career, your passions.
To brief you up, I was born in Burma, Myanmar. My father was a merchant in Molmin. And a couple of years after I was born, we moved to India, my mother and my brothers and sisters, for a better education in India. And I went through my schooling and college in six, seven different cities, ending up with Lawrence, Kansas, where I did my master's in mechanical engineering. That was in 1958. After I returned to India for almost 31 years, I worked with a large engineering firm, Larsen and Toubro, and went through various roles from manufacturing to marketing to HR to strategic planning. And I retired in 1990, 1990. Well, I took an early retirement by 1 year. And you may ask me why I took an early retirement. And the reason was like this. I knew that if I continued till my normal retirement, which was just 1 year away, then the management would give me an extension of 5 years. And after I complete that 5 years, they'll give me another extension of 5 years. It would be never ending for people who had done well for the company. So I took an early retirement and set up a headhunting firm, recruitment at senior level, which I built up over the 20 years from 1990 till 2010 12. And my younger son, Nirmit, worked with me right from the day one. And after 20 years, I said, enough is enough. Now you take over. And for the last 12, 15 years, he is managing the firm. We are Bombay based firm with about 25 to 30 employees and a couple of people in New Delhi and in Pune. And for the last 10 years, I focused on my blogging site, which you have visited, hemenparekh.in. And the thought came like this. During those 30 years with L&T and subsequent 20 years with 3P, I sent a lot of notes to my colleagues. Those days there were no computers, and uh, and you wanted to give certain instructions. The only way to do was to write down a handwritten note, and I wrote thousands of notes in those 40, 50 years. And the notes which I wrote in 3P Consultant, I preserved. Earlier one at L&T, of course, I left company, and probably they remained there. So then the thought came, why don't I upload this on a website so that others who are interested in the same topics can come and read those notes. And I started, with the help of a couple of colleagues, to upload those notes on Blogger platform. Same time I got interested in writing blogs because country India was facing a lot of economic problems, governance problems, and I felt that if I had some solutions to offer, I should, without hesitation, put them up in the manner of a blog and send them to the policymakers concerned, mostly the cabinet ministers in the central government and the state chief ministers. And once I started, it was like a addiction. Every morning I look up newspapers, come across some problem where I have something, some idea to offer, and I would sit down and write out a blog. In fact, even this morning when I was waiting uh, for our call to start, in the 10 minutes, 15 minutes, I wrote down a blog. And it's an interesting blog. Well, not published yet, but I'll tell you about it. In India, you don't mind this little diversion, do you?
I wouldn't interrupt you for the world, Hemen. I'm fascinated. This is wonderful.
In India, we have 300 million households and about 30 million concrete buildings. But rooftop solar has failed to take off. And the reason is very simple. Take example of the building in which I live. It's a 10-floor building with about 15 tenants in the building, and the rooftop is hardly 1,000 square feet. So at the most, it can produce 10 kilowatt of power, which is just not enough for even my apartment. So it is absolutely useless for the if I want to feed solar power to the entire building. So I came up with the idea about 3 years back, and I wrote to the government and I said, look, why don't we have cooperative solar farms far away from the cities where land is not a problem, where people can purchase X number of solar panels and become the owner, but the electricity which is generated 500 kilometers from Mumbai, I can use it here in my home in Mumbai. Now, gradually, the government is coming around to this idea, and in the meantime, one Indian startup has already implemented this solution. On a private basis, they're putting up solar farms far away from population centers and tying up with the distribution companies and delivering power anywhere you want to buy it. So, okay, there was another reason I also thought of putting up all my blogs on the blogging site. At some point of time, one of my friends mentioned about a book called Dying Empty. Have you read that book?
I'm familiar with it.
Dying Empty. I have not read the book, but the friend explained that the author meant that he has many ideas for reforming the world, and if he doesn't write it down and put it up in the manner of a book or whatever, then he will be taking them to the grave with him. That's no good. Before you go to the grave, you must empty yourself. And I thought that sounded fascinating to me, and I started writing all those blogs. Uh, then the next question, how did I get onto the personal AI? Can I start on that?
Yes, absolutely. I'm curious, before we get there, you mentioned on your website that on June 27th, you turned 90, which is just remarkable. And I'm just curious, have you always been so visionary and forward thinking? The solar farms and some of the many ideas that you've suggested are quite visionary.
Well, visionary is a big word. I think all of us have ideas. Only difference is most don't put it down on a piece of paper, whereas I do put it down on a piece of paper. That's all different. There is, I don't have any monopoly on any idea. Let me go and add one more thing. Every idea that has occurred to me and which I have put it down as a blog, 10,000 other people have, the idea has occurred to 10,000 other people. Same idea. Only difference, I put it down, those other fellows didn't put it down. No monopoly. October 21, I read an article about personal AI, but so I registered, and I presume I was one of the earliest to register. I think so. Therefore, Suman wrote to me and he says, Hemen, let us onboard you onto the personal AI through a video meet. So I said, fine. And we had a video meet and he explained to me what personal AI can do, how I can upload all my documents and create memory blocks, and I can chat, type question and get answers, all those things. And there is a close group of members with whom also you can chat. So I got some of my colleagues in my office to start uploading the documents which are on my blogger site. I think over 2 years we uploaded about 30,000 documents, and probably as of today we have some 117,000 memory blocks. Okay, now that is where I differed with Suman. Personally, I is a close group, as I see today, with members going to personal AI site and being able to chat with each other, use autopilot, use copilot, etc. But I said, look, I don't even have a close group of friends in India. I had six close friends, all of whom died over the last 10 years. So I have no friends. And now, about 12, 15 years, I'm out of the office consulting firm. So I have no colleagues that way, to so to speak. So that is not of interest. But what would interest me is that if I could tell the world what I know, and that is where the API of personal AI came in very handy. And we discussed with Sharon and Suman for over 6 months. And then finally in February this year, I launched version 1 of personal AI. And of course, 2 weeks back, I launched the version 2 of personal AI. I will become a developer. My wife will become a developer. Everybody will become a developer. And when that comes, I hope to stick around up to that time. No, no, in no hurry to kick the bucket as yet. Okay, okay. So that 64-year-old video, I might be able to develop that into a 3D volumetric hologram, and maybe even my little face on my website could also move around, come out of the screen, and talk to people. In fact, in some of the emails which I exchanged with Joe Ward and Suman and Owen, Adam Zhang, I said the same thing. I said, look, I have two elder sisters. One is 94 years old, another is 96 years old, but they are both invalid. They are 500 miles away from where I live, and I myself I am not in health to travel. And one sister is bedridden, another is able to move around, but she can't leave the house. So I said, maybe a day will come when my hologram will be able to jump out of their mobiles, and they can talk to me in Gujarati, my language. Tell me, ask me, what next?
What next? Wow. So beautiful. And it's I'm glad that you shared the journey you took to get to personal AI and then your custom uh, website, Hemen Parekh.ai, because that it will continue to grow and evolve as the technology improves. And just even in the last 6 7 months, we've seen so many developments in AI, in text to video rendering, in synthetic speech, and lip syncing, and all of these things that were, I imagine, much more difficult to do from a technological standpoint when you started this quest.
Yes, I know fully well and read a lot about bad uses of AI. But then I think technocrats all over the world are aware of that. Governments are aware of that. Social thinkers are aware of that. And, and efforts are being made to bring about regulation of AI. In fact, I wrote Parekh's laws of chatbot. I don't know whether you read them. No,
I'll link to it after. We'll link to it in the video.
my interest in computer has always been as a user. I'm not a software guy, but I have been at the user end for what 20, what 40, 45 years, because in 67, 1967, when I was working with Larsen and Toubro engineering company, uh, I was in charge of systems procedures. And I said, look, for manufacturing resources calculation, we need to have a computer. And I approached IBM. And in those days, IBM were not selling computers in India. They were only leasing. So I leased one with a 8K memory. Can you guess that 8K memory?
Wow.
My interest in computer went back to my college days in University of Kansas, where they also had IBM 1401. And I registered for learning for a 3 days or 4 days course. And I, I was told how to give instruction to the computer. And they gave me a stack of cards and asked me to punch holes in that. And I, for one day, I punched holes in the card. And the next day, I fit those into a card reader. And the card, maybe 30, 40 cards, and the card read. And when I saw on the screen, Hemen Parekh, I was thrilled. My God, just a hole in the card, and here I see on the screen Hemen Parekh. Okay, I didn't pursue that. I installed same machine in Larsen and Toubro in 1967, and then in 1982, I persuaded the company and went to France, negotiated with Honeywell Bull, who were tied up with the Honeywell company of USA. Bull is a French company, and it was Honeywell Bull. And I purchased a DPS 7, a mainframe computer with a hard disk of 200K, size of a washing machine.
Yeah, so it went from the room to the washing machine.
Washing machine, 200K, a removable hard disk, which was about 14 inches diameter, 5 disks, which you open the cover and you take out the whole thing, 14-inch cylinder with a 8 inches thick with 5 disks, and you put it away and you loaded another 200K. Anyway, so my love for using computer for applications which would streamline the workflow and increase the productivity went back to those 67 days. Then, of course, when I left L&T and set up my own company, that was in 90. By that time, personal computers had arrived, and I started, although with paper resumes, because in 90 when I set up, the executives who applied to me for a job and who sent their resume to me, they typed it out and they sent the typed resume, and I gave it to a computer operator to enter it in the computer. And I had resume stored in box files running on a shelf which is 40 feet long. But then gradually better hardware came, better software came. Then one day we uploaded everything in the database and tore off all those resumes. What next? Tell me.
I'm so fascinated. So, you've spoken a bit about this, about the vision for your personal AI in the future, which will have a video component. It will perhaps have a 3D kind of volumetric component, your voice, um, and be this repository of your memories, your experiences, your writings, your opinions. And this is the big promise of training your own AI model. what would you say to other people who um, maybe are they haven't gotten started yet? Maybe they're afraid of it or they're not sure why they would need to use it. What would you say to them?
See, Marissa, one thing I think is common to all humans. All of us have a need to be recognized. In fact, I mentioned somewhere, I don't know whether I ever wrote to you, but I said, if you type your name in Google and nothing turns up, that means you don't exist. Huh? And that need to be recognized by your family, your friends, your colleagues, your larger circle, maybe your country or your city, is very strong in people. And especially if what you know gets across and there's a response from the opposite side saying, hey, that's a good idea. That appreciation is, I believe, the greatest motivation for a human being. That not only I have a nice idea, but the world recognizes and appreciates it. Therefore, I think what I have made a beginning is like a path of a calf. There's a beautiful poem called Path of a Calf. You can Google it and read it. I read it about 50 years back and I liked it so much that since 50 years back, there are no computers, there are no printers, there's nothing. I got a 4 feet by 6 feet paper, big paper, and I got some draftsman in my company to handwrite the entire poem. And then I stuck it behind the wall in my cabin where I used to sit, so that every visitor who came read Path of a Calf. Read it, you will like it. So what I started today is Path of a Calf. People will follow and create their own personal websites. One day it was the era of the blogging. You blogged and you had blogging site, you had podcast. Now the era of digital avatar sites is coming, where people will download their brain onto the onto the digital avatar, and the world will come and search for that knowledge. And who knows, AI will develop one day where I have to only give it a one line subject line and it will write a blog for me exactly the way I do. In fact, that idea fascinated me so much that I went to Bard and I said, look, can you read all my 3,000 blogs and then learn everything about the way I think? And then, given a subject, write a blog the way I would have written. And it said, yes, I can do that. So I said, how do I make you read 3,000 blogs? So Bart said, upload the whole file on a Google Drive and send me a link. So I got one of my colleagues, I don't know how to do all this. So I got one of my colleagues to put all my 3,000 blogs into one file and send a link to Bard. Then I went back and said, here is the link. Now you read it. So he said, I can't access Google Drive. Okay. So I can't write a blog like you. I don't know your style. So I went to ChatGPT and I repeated the process. Now, unfortunately, ChatGPT has no access to internet, is the claim. Maybe GPT-4 has, but not one. But anyway, when given a subject, it did produce a elementary crude block. It did right. Not not as good as I would have written or the way I would have thought about writing it. But this is today. 5 years from today, I may not be around. And is there a possibility that my avatar will scan the web, find something about solar rooftop development, and say, hey, this guy when he was alive, he was very much interested in solar rooftop and written 163 blogs on solar. 163. So how about I imitating his style as if he is still alive and write a say 164th blog? Might happen. Who knows? You know better than me.
I have no doubt that it will happen. And I also am pretty sure that we'd be able to hear your voice reading that out and perhaps some of your poetry. Anything is possible now.
Yeah, my to create my voice clone, I sent the audio file of my English poems. Okay, about 125 English poems. I think more and more people will like to. In fact, I 4 5 months back, I sent a prepared blog and sent it to our Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and I said, look, 2024 general election is due in February, over to Parliament, Indian Parliament. Okay. In the meantime, state election, 5 state elections are going on right now. 2 are over yesterday, and 3 more will be starting next week. And I said, you as a Prime Minister want to reach out to millions of Indians with your thought, with your ideas. It's not difficult. I have developed Hemen Parekh.ai. You can ask personally I to develop NarendraModi.ai. 15 days maximum or 1 week to develop that. And I uploaded 3,000 typed document. Okay. In your case, dear Mr. Modi, over the last 8 years, all the speeches which you made, they run into something like 3,000 hours of speeches, audio file, 3,000 hours of audio file, which are also as text, both audio and text. The government of India, after all, he's the prime minister of the country, no? And he has a whole department, IT department. There's a publicity cell, which is 1,000 people all over the country. Only IT guys working for his 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 party. So I said, once NarendraModi.ai is there, 1 million people can come and ask you question about government policies, reforms, benefit scheme, anything on the earth. And in your own voice, you can reply to 1 million people at the same time. Reason I wrote is because in 2019 election, Modi had a studio in Delhi where with very expensive equipment, a hologram was created when he delivered a speech. And in 26 cities around the country, his party had put up a tractor trailer with all the equipment where his hologram was projected all over the country. And in each of the place, There was a live broadcast of his speech with a hologram, which millions of people sat in front of the tractor trailer in the open and listened. So he's a forward-thinking guy. Anyway, he probably is too busy to read my emails. So, but this will happen. People, whether celebrities, whether they are actors or sportsmen or what, politicians, they would all want their, today they have their own static websites. All of them have. Any actor, any sports person, any politician, they all have this website. But they are static websites. They are not interactive like mine. But one day they will all follow hemenparekh.ai.
So beautiful. Well, Hemen, I could talk to you all day. I'm so fascinated and grateful for our time together and our conversation. And I know that there are so many gems in here that our listeners will be playing and replaying. And I couldn't help but look up the IBM 1401 while you were talking and just to see those images. So we're going to put links to all of these references, including the Calf Path poem and all of the things that we've talked about today in the description of this video. And stick around, everybody, because in part 2 of this interview, I'm going to be interviewing Hemen's AI, and you're going to get to experience even more of his wisdom and experiences through the virtual version of Hemen. So thank you so much for your time today. It was such a pleasure being with you and just learning and experiencing how you've been thinking about technology and just on the forward edge of it. So you have been an early adopter for a long time, and it's a true privilege and pleasure to be with you today.
My pleasure. And let this not be the last meeting. Huh? Maybe
Yes,
3 months down the line, when there is further development, let's get together once again.
sounds wonderful. I look forward to that, Hemen. Thank you so much. Check the description below for part 2 of this video in which I interview Hemen's AI. See you there.